Hey guys, Tex here. Welcome back to the channel. Today is Sunday, August 15, 2021. In today's video, instead of doing a usual watch list video, I wanted to just kind of, run through some charts with you and just kind of go through my process of looking at some possible trade ideas as we head into next week. So as usual, guys, I always appreciate you watching. Let's roll the intro and jump into the charts. All right, guys, welcome back. Let's go ahead and jump over to the market first and foremost and take a look at things. So just also want to mention really quickly, obviously you guys know I'm using TradeStation now for my charting and my execution needs here. I also should mention that you'll see some indicators and lines on my charts and everything that are really proprietary to Smash the Bid, which is a trading service that I joined up with to really grow as a trader beyond just being a scalper. So I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to check it out. That's where I'm hanging out now. Definitely really good content over there, and just a lot of knowledgeable traders. So all right, so talking about the market, S&P 500, right? Let's take a look at the cash index here. So 240 chart, we're taking a look at this as we've been grinding higher here. Overhead, we have the long-term best price, which is for next week, 44.83. You can think of best price as like the fair market value. It's kind of like the fair price. And we kind of expect that price will want to magnet to that area, but it doesn't necessarily have to. Okay, so keep in mind that it is overhead. It continues to be just grinding up towards best price, which continually moves up and up and up as we are calculating a positive slope. Obviously, we are in an uptrending market. 4,500 is overhead. That'll be significant, overhead psychological resistance there, that nice whole round number. But all in all, the S&P, the Dow, all looked pretty strong. And that goes on the heels of this infrastructure bill that they're looking to pass. So that would definitely be good there. We saw a little bit of weakness, nothing major, but just a little bit of weakness and some volatility in the NASDAQ this past week. You can see some of these big, kind of expand this, see some of these big liquidation breaks that we had here. Best price for the NASDAQ futures here is next week is 15,263. The prior week it was down here where we were rejecting off of it, and you can see how we started to pull back, formed a couple of lower highs. We got the 920 cross on the 240s. We started this short-term negative slope, but it looks like we are trying to break out of that. We got the 920 cross back up on a positive slope. And we did break above this high initially. We're kind of holding right at that. So the NASDAQ does need to continue this trend back up for the positive slope to make it back up to best price. But overall, everything we're seeing is bullish is really my point here. And there's really no reason to think that that's not going to continue until it doesn't, right? People just have no reason to sell right now. And until they do, until we get some kind of negative catalyst, I just don't foresee that happening. But we're always aware that it could happen at any point. The market obviously is getting very extended, especially when you start going through your very macro timeframes. Let's take a look at the daily charts really quickly on this. Let's pull up the SPY. So looking at SPY, I think my levels may be wrong here. I'm going to have to double check that, but we do have short-term best price over here at 447.09. I'm not positive that I got those levels right. So anyway, just kind of looking at the daily chart on this, obviously we closed a nice green day this past week, or I should say we closed a nice green week up into new all-time highs as we do look at the weekly chart over here. We go to the Qs here, look at your weekly chart on the Qs. We are just consolidating right underneath the best price. So obviously this is what we were talking about, I think, in the prior week's video, where we might see a little bit of rotation through the sectors, and we'll see that actually in play as we run through the sectors here in a minute. But obviously we're not really seeing any significant selling in tech, but just a little bit of relaxation here with this nice little doji week that we closed out. And we do see some of that rotation through some of the other sectors that would favor that infrastructure type of bill. IWM for your small caps, again, look at your weekly chart here, still stuck inside of this range. We have long-term best price quite a ways overhead. Really nothing happening here until we break up or down on this. And the longer this continues, obviously it's letting those moving averages catch up to the price action. And it's just trading sideways. So really nothing to read into this at this point in time. But we go to the Dow, and here's the Dow pushing up into a new all-time high this past week. Nice expansion of range again, definitely helped out by those infrastructure stocks. All right, so let's take a quick run through our sectors. Let me just turn off our hourly charts there, and let's go take a look at our weekly charts for technology. Basically same as Qs, right? We got a little bit of consolidation week here, a nice little doji there. We go to healthcare and still very bullish, obviously still trending up well above our moving averages. And these are sorted by their weighting in the index, right? So healthcare being the second heaviest weighted. We go to consumer discretionary, just consolidating, holding up over our moving averages there. Communications, just a nice grind that continues up here, very bullish. Financials, this is one that we talked about in the prior several weeks videos, that it had been struggling in its moving averages. Let's take a look at this on the daily time frame. So here it is. This is where we were kind of consolidating underneath of that 50 period moving average. I kept mentioning that if we could ever break out above that, that should put all-time high on deck, and we have already broken over all-time high. So we did get that nice break out of that consolidation range there. So nice move back up there in financials, going to industrials. Again, industrial seeing a pop up, all-time high on deck. And this is just playing into that rotational effect through the sectors, and that infrastructure bill certainly helping things. Consumer staples, again, this is one of your defensive sectors. Nice expansion of range this past week, pushing up into a new all-time high. Utilities, another one of your defensive sectors. Again, nice expansion of range, pushing up, but it is noteworthy that that is not the all-time high. So the all-time high here before the pandemic sell-off is still up here at 71.10. All right, so we're getting pretty close. I really wouldn't worry about this too much until we start seeing utilities really pressing to new all-time highs, while the market is also pressing to all-time highs. That could be a little bit of a warning sign, but again, it's just one piece of your narrative. Not really much to read into it at this point in time. Just a nice push higher as we do see that rotational effect through the sectors. Here's real estate. I mean, again, real estate just incredibly strong, continuing to grind higher. Basic materials, again, nice expansion of range, breaking out from this consolidation where we pulled back below our moving averages. And last but not least, we do have energy. Keeping in mind, energy is still technically in a long-term downtrend here, rejecting off that 200 moving average here on the weekly chart, and so far just holding up down here underneath your moving averages. Okay, so that's run through your sectors. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stocks that we like to trade and see what's happening for this next week. Let me turn this back on. So we're going to start out here with Apple. Looking at your weekly chart on Apple, right? So it's a lot more clear on your weekly chart how we have been consolidating here after this nice run higher into a new all-time high. Kind of allowed that 9 EMA to catch up to the price action, and we're sitting right underneath the best price, which is $149.81 for next week, and the all-time high is actually $150 even. So I do like this for a possible continuation move higher this next week. We do need to get over the all-time high and best price, kind of hold that as support for a leg higher. We'd probably be targeting that next calc level up at 155.51. First target's probably going to be kind of like the 50% mark in between, so somewhere in that 152 and change area if we can get a nice expansion of range over that 150. Taking a look at your 240 minute chart here, I love how we're consolidating right here, right underneath the best price. So you can see how perfectly we're holding up here, allowing the moving averages to catch up. Again, if we can get a break over that 150 area, hold that as support, we should see a move up here into this 50% range, with the ideal target being that 155 calc level overhead. Looking at the hourly chart this past week, we got a nice pullback here, held these pivot lows just above a short-term calc level. Again, just consolidating, kind of looking for another leg higher, unless, of course, some weakness shows up in the market. We start seeing some volatility. That would definitely throw out any long setups out of the window, but it really looks good here on the weekly chart. Just a quick look at our daily chart on this one. So you can see, obviously, a little bit of a pennant formation here, really nice consolidation, nice expansion of range here this past Thursday, a nice consolidation day on Friday, possibly a continuation day as we head into Monday this coming week. So something to definitely watch out for there. Now, AMD, this one's going to be one of my top watches, actually, going into next week. I do love this. We've had this incredible run higher here. We broke over that key $100 psychological barrier there. That prior all-time high was at 98 and change. Let's take a look at it on the weekly chart. So, yeah, here's your prior all-time high over here. We clearly broke through that. We actually pushed through week's high and got a little bit extended, pulled back into the 107.07, which week's high and best price, you have that 107.07 level is kind of like that 50% level between those two major levels. That seems to be where we did find some support. Take a look at this on the 240, right? So we do have a volume point of control sitting here right around that 107 level there. You also have a PCH right here, a prior candle high on your 240 at 107.18, and that's pretty much lining up with the VPOC. You also have the 920 crossing back over here. Okay, so possible signs of reversal for a move back up higher. I like that. Additionally, taking a look at your hourly chart, we got the 920 cross. You have a PCH down here at 107.18 that's lining up nicely with that 107 calc level. That is a long-term calc level, so that is that's going to be a bigger level, certainly. And then you have a short-term calc level here that is actually the best price for next week on the short-term level. That is 106.67. So we have a lot of things lining up here. I mean, how many different criteria do we have? We have an hourly PCH. We have a long-term calc level. We have a short-term calc level, which is actually best price. We have on the 240-minute chart, we have a PCH there as well. We have VPOC, that's 5 reasons. You got the 920 cross on both of those time frames, that's 6 reasons. So a lot of reasons to be taking this trade if AMD can get a nice pullback this next week into that 107 area. There is a PCH right here at 108.09. So right here at 108.09. So that might hold price up. It might not get all the way down here if the bulls really step in early. So something to keep in mind. The ideal kind of drool zone dip buy that I'd be looking at is down in this 107 area. Again, a lot of reasons, like at least six criteria to be taking the trade there. That looks really good. Was hoping to get that $100 level here on AMD. We talked about it in the prior week's video, and that would be a really nice retest of the all-time high breakout. We just may not get it. Let's take a look at it on the daily chart real quickly here. Yeah, so basically pulled into the 9 EMA. Again, holding that 107 calc level and then bouncing nicely up off of it into the next one. So if we get the pullback into 107 and we hold that, definitely a good long. We'd expect to trade it up to the next calc level, which will bring you back up here to the 111. And that's also kind of like range bottom support there as well. So again, a lot of reasons to like that 107 area, keeping in mind the PCH at 108 might hold things up. All right, take a look at Amazon. All right, so Amazon, this one's looking a little bit tricky for me. I kept thinking, with this big gap down that we would try to retrace some of this gap. And this is a massive gap down after the earnings, right? We kept consolidating. We kept holding up over the long-term calc level here. And then we did finally break below the range and caught support on that 200 moving average. You could argue that this is kind of like a 1, 2, 3 reversal setting up here. So if that is the case, if that plays out, Amazon might try to pop back up here. Let's take a look at on the weekly chart. Okay, so on the weekly chart, you actually have the 50 moving average sitting there, and you can see in the past where that has provided support for Amazon. However, look at the slope of this 50-period moving average, how it's kind of pointed upwards, and if you look here, it's actually starting to curl and point downwards. Okay, so I might put a little bit less weight into this 50-period moving average, actually holding price as support in this case. It really, this past Friday, I actually took a loss on this, trying to take it long off its calc level, and it was incredible how weak the price action was on Amazon. You had the market that was pushing higher, but Amazon was not having any of it. I mean, you can see it right here on your 240 chart. I mean, look at this weakness compared to the market. It pushed up into new all-time highs again here, and so with the market pushing higher, obviously it's going to be like swimming upstream for Amazon to try to sell off, but that incredible relative weakness that we're seeing in the name is just telling me that it really wants to come down, probably into best price, week's low down here, which is kind of like a really good dip buying opportunity. If it holds, 31.49 is where it sits right now. And I want to take a look at this on the daily chart. So week's low right now is lining up with this support here, this pivot support here. If this breaks, if we break this 200 moving average, it should really fall apart here nicely. You do have 3,200, nice whole number coming in right there. That'll be possible support. Then you have this pullback low right here, which is 3172. So depending how long it takes to get down there, week's low is going to be kind of stair-stepping up every week as the slope calculations continue to bring it up, as we are still technically in a positive slope and a long-term positive slope. So if you could get this week's low here to line up with this pullback low right here at 3172.20, that would be really big. When you can get technical analysis and math to line up, that could be really huge. So you know, Amazon's not really my favorite because of the fact that we do possibly have a 1, 2, 3 reversal here. It is trying to hold this calc level, and there is a chance that it could pop back up. But obviously, you see the relative weakness here. I mean, what did it do? It pretty much just traded sideways. It's allowed that 9 EMA here on the daily chart to catch up to the price action before possibly heading lower. So I'm more short biased on this based on that weakness I saw in the price action. But again, bearing in mind that we are sitting right on support here, we've got to get under this 200 moving average to really open the door up to some downside. So this one probably is going to require some patience. If we do hold this 32.91 level, we could certainly see a pop back up higher. Let's zoom out on the 240. Where are we at here? You've got a volume point of control overhead around 33.50, and you see the PCL stacked up, right? These are going to be significant areas of resistance. In fact, you can see this range right here. Let me just see if I can pull up my drawing tools for you really quickly here. Just sorry guys, bear with me. Let me just open this up really quickly, and we will pull this out here. Okay, so you see this range that we're traded in right here, right? And if we have a break over this PCL, this prior candle low where this candle here broke down from, right? If we see a break over that, then I would expect a move back up to the top of the range. At a minimum, we'd probably see this volume point of control and this PCL right here get tested. You also have a PCL right there. And then if all of that goes, the top of the range would be the final target. Obviously getting over the top of the range, then that would change things dramatically, and we could expect to move up to this next calc level here. I just don't see it, again, based on the price action that I saw. But again, we just want to keep an open mind on this, right? So if we do hold this level here and we continue to move back up into the range, those are kind of the areas overhead I'd look at. But again, the relative weakness tells me that it's probably going to head down. So this one, let's be patient with it. Let's let it set up next week and see if we get an opportunity. But I just don't see anything out of the gate on Monday on it, depending on how we open up. Alibaba. So this is one that I don't really trade very much, guys, but it's worth noting that we are having a pretty significant breakdown on this. Let's go to the weekly time frame, and you can see that we are basically breaking the positive slope, meaning that we are trading below week's low, which means that that long-term positive slope, that long-term uptrend for the stock has broken, and we are basically confirming below that. So to me, it looks like more downside. If we go to the hourly chart, you can see that we are pretty much trending down below the 20 moving average, right? We had this pop up here. We're coming back down. I mean, technically you could say that we are trying to hold a higher low here. That remains to be seen, because here we had this big move lower, right? We had this big move lower here. Look at this gap right here. We had massive gap down. We gapped up the following day and just kind of had a little bit of a reprieve bounce. We got a little too extended away from that 200 moving average there on the hourly chart, kind of let price action catch up to that. And now we're just kind of grinding back down from there. And basically what we did this past Friday is it looks like we just filled this downside gap right there. And that's what we're holding as support. You can see it more clearly over here on your 240 chart, right? You have this PCH right here. That's what we're holding. So if this PCH holds, I would not be surprised at all to see a little bit of a pop back up, maybe into the 20 moving average here on your 240 chart. You've got a PCL overhead here at about 188.90, and you've got one here at 190.150. So this is going to be really kind of that 190 to the 191.50 area. This is going to be a prime area for a potential pop up and rejection to see if the the downtrend continues here. If we do continue down, some of the areas to be looking at down here, we do have this reversal PCH right here at 181.76. I'd say that's the most likely target. You've also got a short-term calc level at 182.71. And then final target would be all the way down here at 170 because you've got this short-term week's low here. But also, if we take a look at the weekly chart, you can see that 170 is lining up nicely with this swing low right here and all of this range action that was supported on it back here. Okay, so 170 would probably be like the final target that I'd be looking for on any short here for Alibaba. And again, just kind of looking for a retrace back up into our moving averages, 190, 191, maybe 192 area for a possible rejection and a move back down lower. If we do hold this PCH here, you could see you could see a bit of a retracement here. So we'll have to keep an eye on this and see what it wants to do. But I'm leaning more short. We'll see. So something to keep an eye on there. Facebook, I just don't see anything right away that I'm in love with this. It's just riding that 9 EMA up here on the weekly chart. We had a consolidation week here over the calc level. We are over best price. You've got a pretty major PCL overhead here at 366.98, call it 367. So you'd have to get over that to make a move back up here to this next calc level. We are looking, if we open up where we are now, we're over a calc level, and you do have a PCH right down here as well. So if Facebook holds this area, then this could be a long at least up to this PCL, and then if that breaks, then you'd look for a move back up to the next calc level. I'm just not in love with it, guys, so probably not going to be one of my top watches, at least early in the week, but just keeping in mind that this 360 level, if it holds, could be a long there for Facebook, so that might be worth watching. Netflix, I'm not even going to look at that. It's not doing anything right now. NVDA, I believe they report earnings this next week, so I'm not sure how well it will be for trading. Keep in mind the options will be more expensive because of the implied volatility due to those expected earnings. But it is kind of forming a little bit of a cup and handle here. It's holding underneath of the calc level there at 205.69. Take a look at on the 240 here. So you have VPOC down here at 199, 199.16 or so, and you've got a PCL here on the 240 overhead. So immediately overhead, you do have resistance, and then down here you've got a PCH and you've got VPOC. So if it pulls down here and holds this as support, we might try to see a run higher. I mean, the chart looks bullish. It looks like it wants to move higher. The next ideal target over this PCL obviously is going to be the calc level at 205.69. You've got that PCL right there, and then you've got all-time high. So it might want to make that run up there. Since they are reporting earnings next week, it's probably not going to be on the top of my watch list. We'll just have to wait and see how this opens up next week on Monday, see if tech is going to be strong or not. That will definitely impact this name. So this one probably going to be expressing a little bit of patience on. ROKU, look at this weakness after the earnings. 3 red weeks in a row coming down, 3 big red weeks in a row coming down. Week's low is at 331.83. That's lining up with your 50 moving average there on the weekly chart. Let's take a look at that daily chart. So on the daily, we're actually closing below the 200 moving average. So that is interesting. Week's low of 331.83 is lining up with some possible support here. This was a breakout point here, right, where we had resistance, we held it as support, and then a big expansion of range higher. So if we get a move down into the week's low here, that would be probably a good dip buying opportunity there for ROKU. Let's take a look at it on the 240 chart here. So we are below this calc level 362.04, and we have a lot of PCL stacked up over us. Moving averages are obviously pointed downwards. I would not be surprised at all to see ROKU make that move down to the week's low next week, and I'll keep an eye on that for a possible dip buying opportunity, maybe a short-term swing trade, day trade, something like that. So keep the 331.83 on watch there for ROKU next week. Square. So Square is rejecting off of the best price at 285.64. That's also lined up with your all-time high right there. A little bit of a double top rejection. Just looking at the weekly chart, it looks like it wants to continue pulling back into this calc level 251.92, and that's also the 9 EMA on the weekly chart. Take a quick look at the daily. Okay, so you got the 20 moving average sitting down there around 263.12. Maybe a little bit of support right there in that pocket. Looking at your 240. So you have VPOC overhead. I did not mean to move that. I didn't know you could do that. But you have VPOC overhead sitting around 272.54. We are below the calc level. It does look like it wants to head lower. Possible, you know, if this area here of 264 and change holds support, it will be difficult for it to break down here. Where is that? Yeah, and that's right about where that 20 moving average is on the daily as well. So 264 is probably going to be a little bit of a struggle zone for Square. If it can break below that, it's heading at 251.92, and that might be an area to watch out for. Again, you know, looking at the hourly chart here, sitting right on the 200 moving average. I'm just not super in love with this right here, either direction, honestly. So just something on the back burner. Keep an eye on it next week. Tesla is one that I'll definitely be watching next week. This one continues to show a lot of rejection up here, just over the 700 level. Remember, we talked about how that 700 level is going to be huge. Kept thinking if we could ever break through those sellers at 700, we should get an explosive move higher. I mean, this thing, you know, theoretically had big potential up to, 780 area, where you have this pivot high here. You got, of course, 800, nice psychological whole number. Looking at your math levels, best price is still a ways overhead, 828.28. I mean, it just felt like it would have huge potential, but the sellers, once they broke through 700, are continuing to sell up here in the 720, 730s. So we're continuing to see that heavy selling that is really preventing this breakout, and just not enough buyers really coming in to get that explosive move. So this one's a little bit tricky. It is holding up. I mean, you can see here on the 240, we do have VPOC sitting here just below calc level, around 713 and change, calc level 714.61. We have a PCH right here at what is that? So 710.60. Okay, so if Tesla pulls and holds this PCH, and more importantly holds over this calc level, there could be a long setup on this. Again, I'm going to be a little bit cautious with this. Basically, I'm instating a new rule for Tesla, at least for right now, to not buy any breakouts, because breakouts are just failing all the time on Tesla right now. The dip buys are the better entry into the stock, and so we will just wait and see if we can get any dip buys into a good PCH or a calc level or something. Just the breakouts are not going to work. We're not going to be buying breakouts in the stock right now when it is just continuing to fail. All right, guys, so I'm going to wrap it up there. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you had a great weekend. Let's get ready to head into the new week. I wish you a great and green week of trading, as always, and we'll see you guys in the next video.